Imagine training so brutal that grown men break down crying. Imagine a system so extreme that modern champions call it insane. Imagine boxers who never turned professional, yet destroyed everyone who stood in their way. For decades, the Soviet Union produced fighters the world couldn't understand. Champions with no fear. Fighters who moved like ghosts and punched like sledgehammers. Men who never seemed to get tired, never seemed to feel pain, never seemed to break. How? What did they know that the rest of the world didn't? While American boxers trained in state-of-the-art facilities with cutting-edge equipment behind the Iron Curtain, champions were being forged through methods so severe, so calculated, so ruthless, that even today they're considered extreme. This wasn't just training. This was systematic destruction and reconstruction of the human body and mind. The Soviets didn't just build boxers, they engineered weapons. And what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about what it takes to become a champion. Drop your country in the comments and subscribe, because this goes deep. Boxing arrived in Moscow in 1894, but for the next 2 decades, it remained a curiosity, a Western import that never quite took root in Russian soil. Then came 1917, revolution. The Bolsheviks seized power and immediately viewed boxing with suspicion. To them, it represented everything they opposed: individual glory, profit-driven spectacle, bourgeois entertainment. They came close to banning it entirely. But in 1918, everything changed. The Red Army needed soldiers who were mentally tough and physically resilient. They needed men who could think clearly under pressure, who could take punishment and keep fighting, who wouldn't break when everything fell apart. They found their answer in boxing. What started as military combat training evolved into something far bigger. By the 1952, boxing had become part of the holy trinity of Soviet sports, standing alongside wrestling and gymnastics as pillars of athletic excellence, funded by the state, studied by scientists, refined by military strategists. But here's what made Soviet boxing truly unique. It developed in complete isolation. While the rest of the world shared techniques, strategies, and training methods, the Soviet system evolved behind the Iron Curtain, cut off from Western influence, forced to innovate independently. And they never went professional. Every Soviet boxer remained an amateur throughout their career. Yet they fought under professional rules, creating a hybrid system that combined amateur discipline with professional intensity. This isolation became their greatest advantage. With no outside influence, Soviet trainers experimented without limits. They pushed boundaries no Western coach would dare cross. They treated boxing not as a sport, but as a science, studying biomechanics, psychology, physiology with obsessive detail. What they created in those years would dominate international boxing for decades. But the training required to produce these champions, that's where the story gets dark. Soviet boxing wasn't built on talent, it was built on system. Western boxing celebrated the individual, the natural gift, the born fighter. Soviet boxing rejected this entirely. Their philosophy was simple and brutal. Any human body can be transformed into a weapon if you apply the right methods with enough discipline. Talent was irrelevant. System was everything. Soviet trainers were often military officers or state-appointed coaches who approached boxing like engineers approach machines. Every movement was studied. Every punch was analyzed. Every training session was calculated for maximum efficiency. Their goal wasn't just to make fighters stronger or faster. Their goal was to eliminate wasted movement, wasted energy, wasted thought. They obsessed over what they called the kinetic chain, the sequential activation of muscle groups that transfers power from the ground through the body into the fist. Western boxers understood this instinctively. Soviets studied it scientifically, breaking it down into teachable components, drilling it until it became neurological programming. But the real genius was their understanding of relaxation. While Western fighters often tensed up, trying to generate power through muscular force, Soviets learned to stay loose, to let the body's natural mechanics do the work. They punched with their entire body weight behind each shot, but the arm itself remained relaxed until the moment of impact. Maximum damage, minimum energy expenditure. The gym culture reinforced this philosophy with military discipline. No complaining, no shortcuts, no excuses. Weakness wasn't just discouraged, it was systematically eliminated. Legendary coach Konstantin Gradopolov developed training protocols that emphasized rhythm, timing, and footwork over raw power. His methods became the foundation of Soviet technical boxing, spreading through every gym in the Union. Sparring wasn't practice, it was psychological warfare. Partners were deliberately chosen to exploit weaknesses, to create problems that had to be solved under pressure. The message was clear. In the ring, you are alone, and your mind is your only ally. Training sessions were designed to break fighters down mentally before rebuilding them stronger. This wasn't cruelty. This was the Soviet understanding that mental toughness couldn't be taught through words. It had to be forged through suffering. And the suffering, that was just beginning. Soviet physical conditioning wasn't just brutal, it was calculated brutality. Every morning, before the sun rose, fighters ran. 10 to 15 kilometers. No exceptions, no excuses. But this wasn't just road work. This was mental conditioning disguised as cardio. They ran in sub-zero temperatures, through snow that reached their knees, up hills that burned their lungs, wearing heavy boots that made every step a battle. The point wasn't just cardiovascular fitness. The point was teaching the body to function when every survival instinct screams to stop. Your lungs are on fire, your legs are dead, your mind is begging you to quit, and you keep running. That's where champions are made. Strength training focused entirely on functional power. No bodybuilding, no isolation exercises, no mirror muscles. Compound lifts, squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, movements that built explosive strength from the ground up, that taught the body to generate force as a unified system rather than individual muscles. Soviet trainers obsessed over leg power, understanding that every knockout starts in the feet. The fist might deliver the punch, but the legs provide the foundation. Medicine ball throws developed rotational power. Sledgehammer work built explosive strength through unconventional movement patterns. Battle ropes conditioned the shoulders for sustained output. Core work was relentless. Hundreds of sit-ups daily, leg raises until failure. Planks held until the body collapsed, often with added resistance, always past the point of comfort. But the most distinctive element of Soviet conditioning? Neck training. While Western fighters largely ignored neck strength, Soviets treated it as essential. Neck bridges, weighted neck curls, isometric holds that built the muscles and ligaments capable of absorbing tremendous impact. They understood what many fighters learned too late. A strong neck can be the difference between staying conscious and hitting the canvas unconscious. Conditioning drills simulated the specific fatigue of fighting. Shadow boxing until collapse. Bag work in rounds longer than actual fights. Circuit training designed to leave fighters gasping. The goal wasn't fitness. The goal was learning to fight effectively when exhausted, when the body is screaming for oxygen, when technique should fall apart but doesn't, because it's been drilled past the point of conscious thought. Pain was the teacher. Discomfort was the classroom. And quitting, that wasn't an option that existed. The body will adapt to anything if the mind refuses to break. Soviet technical training was where science met art. Mitt work and pad work weren't about speed. They were about timing and rhythm. Trainers used complex patterns, constantly changing tempo, forcing fighters to adapt mid-combination rather than rely on memorized sequences. This developed something crucial: the ability to think while fighting, to adjust in real time, to respond to what's actually happening rather than what you expected to happen. Heavy bag work obsessed over the kinetic chain. Every punch had to flow from feet through hips to fist in one seamless motion. Coaches would stop fighters mid-session if they saw wasted movement, drilling proper mechanics until it became automatic. The speed bag trained hand-eye coordination and rhythm. The double-end bag developed accuracy against moving targets, teaching fighters to hit what won't stay still. But the real genius appeared in shadow boxing. Western fighters often treated shadow boxing as warm-up. Soviets treated it as mental rehearsal. They shadow boxed with intent, visualizing specific opponents, executing combinations with perfect form, rehearsing defensive reactions against imagined attacks. This wasn't physical training. This was programming muscle memory at the neurological level, creating pathways in the brain that would fire automatically under pressure. Footwork drills were practiced obsessively. The pendulum step, that distinctive in-and-out rhythm that defines Soviet boxing, was drilled thousands of times until it became as natural as breathing. They mastered ring cutting, learning to control distance with precision. They perfected defensive footwork that turned retreat into counterattack positioning. Movement wasn't just about going forward or backward. Movement was about controlling space, dictating range, creating angles. The extended lead hand, their signature long guard, was practiced until it became a constant threat. it wasn't just defense. It was a blinder that obstructed the opponent's vision while controlling the space between fighters. Defensive habits were trained through endless repetition. Slip, roll, parry, block, all done with minimal movement, maximum efficiency. No wasted motion, no telegraphed reactions. The Soviet philosophy was absolute. Technique is what remains when you're too tired to think. Every skill had to work under pressure, under fatigue, under the chaos of actual combat. So they drilled past perfection, past the point where it became muscle memory, until it became something deeper. Instinct, automatic, unthinking response hardwired into the nervous system. Soviet sparring sessions were legendary for one reason: they were real fights. This wasn't light work. This wasn't technical sparring with pulled punches and friendly respect. These were battles designed to break you or make you unbreakable. Fighters regularly sparred 10 to 12 rounds, far beyond what actual fights demanded. The goal was to condition them to perform when others would collapse from exhaustion. Sparring partners were chosen strategically. Taller fighters to practice against reach disadvantage, southpaws to force adaptation to unfamiliar angles, aggressive brawlers to test defense under sustained pressure. The objective wasn't to win sparring. The objective was to solve problems, to adapt, to learn under fire. But make no mistake, these sessions were violent. Blood was common, knockdowns happened, injuries were expected, accepted, part of the process. There are stories of Soviet champions sparring fresh opponents every 2 rounds, simulating the mental challenge of facing multiple styles in a single session. One legendary account describes heavyweight Valery Popenchenko sparring 6 different partners in one day, each bringing a different style, forcing constant adaptation without rest. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake. This was preparation for the unpredictable chaos of actual combat. Coaches deliberately created worst-case scenarios. Your opponent is bigger and stronger, how do you survive? You're hurt and exhausted, how do you finish? Your game plan isn't working, how do you adjust? Mental rehearsal through physical punishment. The sparring room was where egos died and champions were born. There was an unspoken code among the fighters. You push your partner to his absolute limit because you respect him enough to prepare him for war. This created bonds stronger than friendship. These were men who suffered together, bled together, pushed each other past breaking points, and emerged forged in the same fire. Western fighters who visited Soviet gyms often left shaken by the intensity. The Soviets weren't just training harder. They were training in a completely different way, treating sparring not as practice, but as the most important part of preparation. Because when you've already been through hell in the gym, the actual fight feels manageable. What truly separated Soviet boxers wasn't physical superiority, it was mental dominance. They possessed what Russians call cold blood, the ability to remain emotionally detached in the most intense moments. While Western fighters often fought with passion and emotion, Soviets fought with calculated precision, executing game plans with robotic discipline. This wasn't lack of heart. This was mastery over emotion. Pain didn't change their expression. Adversity didn't alter their strategy. They had poker faces that could demoralize opponents simply through their refusal to show weakness. Watch old footage of Soviet fighters. Even when hurt, even when losing, their faces remained blank. No emotion, no fear, no desperation, just cold calculation. This mental fortitude came from lifestyle discipline that would seem extreme by any standard. Diet was simple and functional, monitored by state nutritionists. Sleep schedules were rigid, 10 hours minimum, non-negotiable. Distractions were eliminated. Limited social life. Controlled environment. Singular focus. Many Soviet boxers lived in training communes where everything, meals, training, rest, was optimized for performance. Their entire existence revolved around becoming better fighters. Visualization and mental rehearsal were practiced daily. Fighters would sit in silence, eyes closed, mentally fighting entire bouts. Rehearsing combinations. Imagining adversity and their response to it. Programming their minds for success before their bodies ever entered the ring. The driving force varied between fighters. For some, it was national pride, representing the Soviet Union on the world stage. For others, it was survival, understanding that success in sport meant a better life in a harsh system. Some were driven by personal codes of honor, viewing boxing as the ultimate test of character. But the common thread? An unshakable belief that mental toughness trumps physical gifts every single time. Your body achieves what your mind believes. and the Soviet mind was trained to believe in the impossible. The results speak for themselves. From the 1,950 seconds through the 1,980 seconds, Soviet boxers dominated international amateur boxing with terrifying consistency. Olympic gold medals piled up. World championships became routine. International tournaments turned into Soviet exhibitions. Legends emerged. Valery Popenchenko, Boris Lagutin, Viktor Rybakov. Names that made opponents nervous before the first bell even rang. But the real proof. The system survived the fall of the Soviet Union. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, the training philosophy didn't die. It evolved, adapted, and continued producing world-class fighters who dominated professional boxing. Valery Lomachenko. His footwork, pure Soviet pendulum step, that distinctive in-and-out rhythm drilled into him from childhood. Alexander Usyk. His movement and angles, straight from the Soviet playbook, ring generalship learned in Ukrainian amateur system. Gennady Golovkin. His relaxed power punching and cold-blooded demeanor. Classic Soviet methodology, the ability to generate devastating power while remaining technically perfect. These weren't just talented fighters who happened to be from former Soviet countries. They were proof that the system worked, that the extreme methods produced results that couldn't be denied. The Soviet approach didn't just build athletes, it built complete fighters. Technically brilliant, physically conditioned beyond normal human limits, and mentally unbreakable. Their success wasn't luck. It wasn't genetic advantage. It was the inevitable result of a training philosophy that refused to accept human limitations as permanent. When Western trainers finally gained access to Soviet methods after the Cold War ended, they were shocked by the intensity. But the results spoke louder than their discomfort. This was the legacy. A system so effective that decades after the Soviet Union's collapse, its training methods still produce world champions. The Soviet Union is gone, but the philosophy lives on. Modern boxing has absorbed Soviet methodology, whether it admits it or not. The emphasis on footwork and distance control, the kinetic chain principles, the pendulum step rhythm, the extended lead hand. These aren't Soviet anymore. They're just effective boxing. Eastern European gyms still teach these methods, passing them down like sacred knowledge from coach to fighter, generation to generation. But more than specific techniques, they pass down a mindset. Training should be harder than fighting. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. Mental toughness is built through deliberate suffering. Today's fighters who train at high altitude, who do ice baths and extreme conditioning protocols, who practice visualization and mental rehearsal, they're walking a path the Soviets paved decades ago. The methods that once seemed insane are now recognized as ahead of their time. Soviet trainers understood something fundamental about human potential. The body and mind can adapt to almost anything if pushed intelligently and systematically. They proved that champions aren't born. They're constructed through calculated brutality combined with scientific precision. The legacy isn't just the champions they produced, it's changing how the entire world thinks about training. They showed that greatness requires sacrifice, that comfort and championship are incompatible, that the mind must be trained as rigorously as the body. Every fighter who pushes through pain, who trains in terrible conditions, who refuses to quit when everything hurts, they're honoring the Soviet legacy whether they know it or not. The Soviet training system was extreme. It was brutal. It demanded everything from fighters who entered it. But it worked. It produced champions who dominated for decades. Its methods still forge world-class fighters today. This wasn't just about boxing. This was about discovering the limits of human potential and then systematically pushing past them. If this changed how you see training, smash that like button. If you want more deep dives into boxing history and the secrets behind legendary fighters, subscribe and turn on notifications. Could you survive Soviet training? Let us know in the comments. Next time, we're breaking down another legend you won't want to miss. Until then, keep fighting, keep learning, and respect the science of the sweet sport.